Hi friends, it's Kayla Moran and welcome back to the Let's Get Candid podcast. How's everybody doing today? Happy Thursday, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever day or time it is that you're listening. So happy to be back on the mic with you guys. I hope that wherever you are, it is sunny and beautiful because it has not been that way this week here in Miami. And honestly, I'm feeling it. It's really like the weather just makes such a difference. And now that the spring is coming, you feel it even more. It's like you want to be outside. And I really hope that this is the last of the rain, these torrential downpours. Like normally we get an afternoon shower every day, but it goes away in 15-20 minutes. Like I really want that back because I just want to be back outside in the sunshine. And I really want to step up my wellness and my movement and meditation routines and just feel really good in my body. That's a big goal of mine in Q2. Something that I've been starting to implement is, I think I talked about it last week, kind of having like a every quarter reset and reevaluating my goals and my intentions and what I want out of that quarter. And now that tax season is here and I filed my taxes and I looked at my numbers and my business and I kind of see where I'm at and what I'm doing. And, the first few invoices are coming in and I'm starting to really market myself and put myself out there. I'm gaining the confidence to really do this, to really be an entrepreneur and a business owner and, say, hey world, I'm open for business. And it feels really, really good to open up for that. And, I think something I've been talking about a lot, I actually posted a reel about this, is it's all about mindset. And, there was a lot of talk about lucky girl syndrome, but I think it's really just that mindset of I want this, I deserve it, and I am open to it, whatever comes my way. And I wouldn't be where I am today had I not done that. And I think that comes from a place of really looking inward and seeing where I'm at and my roots and what I want to get out of life. What do I want to get out of whatever it is that I'm doing? Why am I here? What is my purpose? What is this going to teach me? And really allowing that to shape my life. And I feel like I'm seeing, the benefits. I'm reaping the rewards of those early investments. And I'm really excited to see what comes next. And I have a really great group of people in my life, my friends, my family, that are being supportive of me in ways that I truly never expected. And it feels really, really good. And I'm glad that this is a more upbeat intro than a couple of the past intros. But, it just goes to show that we all turn a corner and that there's going to be some seasons of our life that are lower and more down, whether it's personal, professional, or emotional, or whatever it may be. But that, there is always another day. There is always light at the end of the tunnel. We will get out on the other side and we learn from it and we grow from it. My dog just fell, like getting out of his bed, which is already on the floor. We learn from it, we grow from it, and we take those lessons with us in the next chapter. And I think there's a lot to be said for that resilience and that growth. And, I've talked a lot about how I don't want to be known for my resilience. I wish there were other qualities of me that stood out to people and that, I want to be known for more than that. And I think I'm finally becoming known for more than that. I love networking. I love mentorship. I love being there for people and assisting them in any way that they can and being able to provide guidance and advice for people, whether it's people wanting to go into law school or law students looking for advice on jobs or bar prep or whatever it is. It feels really, really good to know that everything that I've gone through, like I'm starting to see that purpose. And when people come to me and say, thank you for sharing my story or taking the time to meet with them, and they call me back and they're like, I got the job or I got the interview or I got this, it's really, really rewarding. So I'm starting to reap the benefits of all of that, all of the work I've been putting in for the last few months. And it feels really, really good. And I just thought I would share that with you guys because it's been something that's on my mind. And it's just like being open to the opportunities and allowing the world to present you all these opportunities and let them take you where they take you. Because when you are open to the universe guiding you, you're in alignment with your true self. You're, what feels right to you, you are going to keep pursuing. And if it doesn't feel right to you, you're going to not pursue that. And when one door closes, another one opens. And I think it's just, it's an exciting time over here. And, I've been saying spring, summer, I have a really good feeling about it. And, it's kind of funny that the last few days has been pouring rain and I've been a lot more introspective, but it's been the closure I needed in this few weeks of my life of just feeling really unsettled and not confident and unsure of myself. And I feel like I snapped out of it and I'm back, and it's really exciting to be back. And yeah, so I hope you guys are, ushering in spring and a new mindset with the new season and just being open to what is out there. And if you're struggling right now, just know you're not alone. We all have those moments, and I'm here for you however I can be. My whole goal with this podcast is to be there for people and provide that support and guidance, virtually. And because I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have the people around me that I do, and I'm really grateful for that community, and I want to be a part of yours. So if you have any questions about me, or just need advice, please send in questions. Let me know what you want to hear on the podcast, topics, guests, conversations. I'm always here to help. This podcast is for you, and I'm really excited about the upcoming conversations and guests that will be on. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's what's been going on around here. I'm really excited about this week's guest. She's my first recurring guest on the podcast, and it's really cool to have her back, because I'm going to link the first episode below, but her story, Sasha, is one of grief, and it's a really tough story to listen to, but it's also really powerful, the lessons that she gained from it and how she has used that to guide her and to strengthen her. And she's gotten so many beautiful things out of it, even though it was hard. And it's really cool to have her back on now and see, last time we spoke was about a year ago, where she's at now in her career, in her relationship. She got married. We talk about her wedding, and just really cool to see how far she has come. And it's cool for me to see how far I've come from where we were at last year when we first spoke, and being able to share that with you guys. So I think this episode, you're gonna like it. And if you want to get into social media marketing and management and being in the corporate world, you're a corporate girl, this is for you too. She talks a lot about her career and how she has grown in it, and I think it's going to be a really great episode, and I'm excited to have a recurring guest and continue sharing their story and continue having these impactful, powerful conversations, because that is what this podcast is for. So thank you guys so much for listening. If you like this episode, please leave a rating and review. Please subscribe to the show, share with a friend, tag us as you're listening. Like I said, let me know what you want to see next on the podcast, and I can't wait to be back on the mic with you guys next week. I hope you all have a beautiful weekend, and I will talk to you guys soon. Meet Sasha. So, Sasha, what's something that people wouldn't know about you just from following you?
Oh boy, loaded question to start. I don't know. I feel like, the one thing that's really interesting about social media is that you have this transparency about you, what you're willing to share, what you're willing to talk about, what you're willing to post online. And I feel like, especially with the podcast, I've been very transparent in sharing parts of my life. But interestingly enough, as like an individual, just in a general everyday life, I am more reserved. I talk a lot, and I'm happy to talk and share whatever I need to with, according to whoever it is that I'm talking about or talking to. But I feel like there's a lot of things. I'm more the friend who's there to listen, and less of the friend that's there to share things, if that makes sense. I don't like to talk about my problems to my friends sometimes, only because I always think to myself, especially with everything that I've been through in the last 7 years, sometimes they're loaded things that a lot of people around me can't necessarily relate to. And it makes me feel a little bit guilty because I don't want to put this burden and pressure on people. So I feel like maybe that's something that people definitely would not know about me unless they got to know me and, we were actually close friends.
Yeah, I think it goes we're going to talk so much about social media, but the perception, it's not
Mhm.
we are both 100% who we are online, who we are offline, but there's still more of us
Yeah,
offline
for sure.
that people don't get to see. And it's kind of this weird dichotomy, but it's cool that we get to be 100% ourselves, but then still choose to reserve things for ourselves and for the people that
Mhm.
know us and love us the most, and the people we choose to surround ourselves with.
Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely.
I love sharing my life online. I know you do too. And we were
Mhm.
talking off air, like it has transformed us so much. It has changed us. It has allowed us to become who we are and the careers that we have. And we'll talk about that. But it's funny how it's just perception is such a funny thing. Social media is such a funny thing.
Yeah, it is. It truly is. You never really it's like everyone always says, like, you never truly know what someone's going through. And just because you post snippets of your life and what's going on in your life doesn't necessarily mean that those are just moments in time that you're sharing with people and you're picking and choosing what you want to share with people. And there's been times where, I was crying 1 second and the next minute, like, I'm posting something that's like super upbeat and positive, and
Me
even my
today.
husband would tell me like, "Wait, what?" And it's more me trying to get myself out of it, or it's like I'm having a moment and I'm trying to remind myself that the moment isn't going to last forever. But it's very much social media only paints a certain picture of your full life. And even then, I mean, the people that are with you, like I said, I don't always share everything that I'm thinking in my brain, even to my husband sometimes, because it's like sometimes there's like so much going on in there, and I think so much and I overthink a lot too, that it's like, okay, some things I just need to like figure out on my own. I need to talk it out on my podcast. Like, I need to figure out another outlet than just talking to the same people all of the time. So that's where I kind of like social media and like being vulnerable, because you know other people might be going through the same thing that you are, and you would never know it unless you decided to share that. I've been trying to be more open about my grief, especially because people think that it's been 7 years and I've kind of just like moved on from it, but obviously anyone who's grieving knows that that is like a lifelong trauma that you never really get past. You just learn how to live with it, and I'm still trying to figure out how to live with it and every milestone that I have in my life. And I've had a lot this past year. It's just a little sort of bittersweet reminder of, the person that I loved most not being a part of those milestones. So you pick and choose what you like to share, what you don't like to share. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. So just
Yeah.
trying to
We
figure it out.
Yeah, we go through stages too. Like I know for like what you were saying, like right now, like you pick and choose and you like I go through stages of like sometimes I'm way more vulnerable, other
Hmm.
times I'm not. Like sometimes if I'm having a bad day, posting about it helps because like I get the like you're doing great and like you're so inspiring
Hmm.
and that's what I needed. And other times like I can't pick up the phone and share what I'm going through because it's just that bad, but I'll talk about it
Yeah.
later. And other times, like, I'm really happy and I'm not sharing it because I want to enjoy that moment and be happy. Other times, it's like the best time ever. And I'm like, I want people to see this. Like, it just, you go
Oh,
through
for
phases
sure.
with it.
Hmm.
And, you briefly talked about like your grief and your journey with it. And we have a whole episode where Sasha talks about the experience of losing her mom when she was like really close to her birthday, really close to the holidays 7 years ago. So go listen to that episode if you haven't already. I'll share it in the show notes. But yeah, you had some really high highs this year too. Like, and I
Hmm.
love also when you post like the reminders of your mom, like the dove. That's a very significant symbol for you. And
Hmm.
if you listen to that episode, you'll know why. And you post like, my mom is here with me today. And she's always with you when you need her the most. And it's hard
Hmm.
the times when you need her and she's not there. That's always gonna be difficult, but, you
For
got
sure.
married, you have a husband now, and that's
Mhm.
really cool, and, yeah, you don't get to share with her, but she was there with you anyway on
Oh,
your
yeah,
wedding day,
100%.
and that's super cool, so can you talk a little bit about, you know, your relationship with grief, like, to kind of, like, continue that story, like, your relationship with grief now and, like, what that has been like being married, like, being a newlywed. Michael has been there with you from the beginning. You guys were just starting to date at that
Mhm.
time, which is wild too. And where you guys are now with, you and him and what's newlywed life like, and then having that like relationship special with relationship with your mom and the dove and grief.
Yeah, so like I said, a lot of milestones happened this past year. So, at the end of 2021, I got engaged, and then we started planning a whole wedding. No one, like, I feel like everyone but no one prepares you for what it is to plan a wedding, because you hear over and over again people talking about, putting everything together and blah, 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 whatever. And if you're like me and you're a very A-type personality, like planning is really not a big thing. Like I plan everything in my life on a daily basis. I plan a lot of like my get-togethers with my friends, like plans with my husband's friends, like just a family things. But a wedding is a whole other beast because there are so many other people involved in the wedding planning process, and just having to take everyone into account, what this person wants, what that person wants. And yeah, people always tell you, oh, it's just about you and the person that you're marrying. But realistically, like, it's kind of not, because the wedding ends up being for everyone else and not you. And you hear a lot of newlyweds talk about that because the wedding day, like, it's all a blur. It goes so fast. There's so many things going on. So many people need your attention, and you enjoy it for sure, but it's different. And I got a small glimpse of that as I got engaged and then started planning. A lot of things happen during the planning process, and I'm very much a believer in when things constantly get in the way and impede in the plans that you have, and it that's consistently the issue, then it's probably not meant to happen. It's probably either forced or it's just not in the cards for you. And things kept getting in the way of us like planning an actual full-fledged wedding. It was just like a lot of chaos and stress for no reason. And ultimately we just decided to elope. We had
I love
planned.
that. I love that
Yeah.
idea. When you posted that, like that when like often I remember, I don't know, it was in November, like yeah, sometime in the fall. And I remember like being on Instagram and I was like, wait, she got married? Like I
Yeah.
thought she was planning a wedding. And then a couple days later you posted like a brief, like what you just said, like, so many things
Hmm.
got in the way and it just wasn't meant to be. So we did it this way. And I was like, honestly, like I kind of love that. Like
Yeah.
that's more my speed. Like I mean, I'm single as hell, but like
No.
I love that. Like I love that you were just like, you know what? It's about us. Like let's
Yeah.
go do this for us. And if we want to do the wedding thing later, great. And we will or
Right.
we won't. I don't know. But like this is supposed to be about us. And you made it
Oh, no,
about you guys
yeah.
and the pictures and like I loved it. I'm all for it.
I the thing is that, like, the initial plan was that we were always, so our dating anniversary was December 5th. We got engaged on December 4th, and then we were planning on getting civilly married on December 5th again in 2022. And then we were gonna get married now in May of 2023. Like the actual, like, full wedding.
Yeah.
Um, but because of everything that happened, we just decided, you know what, like, the courthouse date that we had initially planned for regardless to get our marriage license, because you have to get it regardless.
Yeah.
We were like, we'll do that, and then that will kind of be it, and then we can figure out the rest from there. If we decide in the future that we want to do an actual wedding with the dress and the whole thing, like, we can do that, great. But if not, then we were married, and that to us was the most important thing. We had been together at that point. We got married on our 7-year anniversary, and 7 years is a pretty long time to be with someone, and especially a 7 years of a lot that happened. And at the end of the day, it was just reminding ourselves that, like, being together was the most important thing to us, and that's what we valued most. And I won't lie, I mean, it's been kind of like a grieving process and grieving the wedding aspect of things, because I had been fully planning the wedding that we were supposed to have, and then kind of like shifting my brain and being like, okay, wait, that's no longer happening. I mean, it's kind of like a mourning sort of process, because I was never the type of girl who ever wanted, I never even wanted to get married in my life. Like, I didn't want to have a husband. I was happy to
Wait, can you
date.
talk about that? I didn't know that. So can you talk
Yeah,
about
so
like not
uh
wanting to get married and then was it like Michael being like, this is my person, I want to
yeah.
marry him? Well,
Mhm.
okay, so yeah, so that was what it, because some people it's like,
Yeah.
if I meet the right one, maybe I'll change my mind, or it's just like, okay, like no, I want that. Like I don't know, like it changes for different people for different reasons. But like,
Ye
yeah, what
yeah.
was that like?
I didn't have, like, the best, like, in my life, like, in general, like, I didn't have the best examples of marriage. So I felt like I didn't fully understand the concept of marriage. I didn't understand, like, why people were so adamant about getting married, and I didn't understand, like, the whole gist of it. And that would kind of make my mom sad, because she was like, "I really, like, you should get married. Like, marriage is wonderful."
Oh, my
But
parents, like, I wanna get married and I always have, but my view of it and, like, the way I wanna go about it and, like, financially and, like, prenup and, like, different, like, aspects of it, like, my everyone's like, "Okay, good luck." And I'm like, "No, like, that's just, like, I don't want it the way that everyone else is." So I'm kind of
yeah.
with you on that, like, I get
No,
it, what you're
yeah,
saying.
and I think that each person, and I've learned this throughout the course of, my life, but especially in the last couple of years, is that like everyone has like their own way of doing things, their own path, like their own marriage, to each their own. And Michael and I had a different path. But for me, like had sort of like a I never had a vision of a wedding. I never was the little girl who had like the vision of the dress or like the vision
Yeah,
of like
same.
whatever. I never had that. And I it wasn't until even like year I think it really started year like three and a half with Michael that I really was just like, oh wait, like I kind of really want to marry him. But it wasn't until like year 4 where it was like, okay, I definitely want to get married. And by year 5 I was like, this better happen, like we got to
Come
get
on,
this
Michael,
done.
get it
Yeah,
together.
get it together, like what is going on. And then the pandemic happened, so I realistically, like, we should have gotten engaged a year before, but life happened
Everything
again.
happens for a reason,
Mhm.
honestly. I think
Yeah.
it all worked out. I
No,
think
yeah,
and
and
it
the
gave you more time with each other,
for
like,
sure.
without the stress of planning a wedding, because that could honestly tear up couples apart. Like,
Oh,
they don't even
definitely.
get to the wedding part sometimes. So, like, you
Yeah.
guys really got to, enjoy the relationship and also, like, I think even you getting comfortable with the idea of marriage when you weren't into it for so long, like, I think maybe, like, it all worked out
Yeah.
the way that it's meant to, but I know exactly what you mean, what you were saying, like, feeling like you're mourning the wedding you guys were supposed to have, because that's
Yeah.
honestly kind of in a similar way what I'm going through in my own life, like, mourning the career that I thought I was gonna have, the
Yeah.
job that I thought I was gonna have, that I planned for myself. I had a job at graduation. I planned for it. This was the life, and I was gonna be able to save up at this time. And I was gonna be able to buy my house at this time. And like, of course, I knew things got in the way, but like, there was a loose timeline of like what was gonna happen and how I was gonna be able to live my
Mhm.
life. And I can visit this person here, and I can go on this vacation then, and blah blah blah. And that didn't end up happening. And kind of similar to you, like I just had to like, you know what, scrap it and like do what is right for me, which ended up being
Mhm.
starting my own firm
Yeah.
right out of law school. For you is eloping because ultimately what you wanted was to marry Michael. That's
Right.
all that mattered. For me, it was like, I know what I
Mhm.
want career wise. I'm gonna make it happen by doing it myself.
Yeah,
But yeah,
you're
you
in control of your
oh,
life. You do
yeah.
you at the end of the day, and it's like the saying goes, it's like you plan, God laughs. And I that time and time again, that has been the story of my life. Like I am such a planner to the T. Like everything has to go a certain way. If it shifts from what it's supposed to be, I start getting like panicky. I'm just like, what's happening? Like why is the plan shifted 3 hours? Like it's not normal, but like I've
No,
learn how
I'm
to
with
get
you.
used to it a little bit and like figure out ways to like deal with my issues. But I mean, at the end of the day, like you're going to do what you want to do no matter what. So it's just figuring out a way to make it happen. For me, it was just, okay, we want to get married. Like we can do that whenever we want. And Michael would tell me that all the time. He's like, we don't need to have a big fancy wedding. Like we can get married whenever we want. It doesn't really matter. It was just more so I think not having all of the people that I love be there, I think was the part that like kind of, wasn't
Yeah.
my ideal situation only because it happened on a Monday. Because you have to get married at the court Monday through Friday.
Yeah,
So
it's not
uh,
a weekend.
it's not like a weekend thing. It's not like you have from 10 o'clock in the morning until 4 p.m. to get married. So it's very much like a kind of like rush situation. And since it was kind of so last minute, we didn't have everyone there, but we were lucky to have the majority of the people that we love like took the day off or came at that point and were there with us. So everything happens the way it's supposed to, and everything happens for a reason. And at the end of the day was beautiful no matter what. And actually, that day specifically, weather wise, was beautiful because the week before and the week leading up to it had been really, really hot. And it had been kind of like humid. And I was really nervous that the day of it was going to be so sticky outside. And we went to Miami Beach Courthouse. Um, And I thought, by the water is like even worse, like the wind, this, that, the other. I'm thinking all these things. And then come that day, it was blue skies, not one cloud in the sky. It
Yeah, I
was
remember
super,
that.
it was,
Yeah.
it was a beautiful, beautiful day. And the weather was like absolutely perfect. It wasn't humid. And I remember one of my best friends telling me, she's like, this day is literally perfect. It's incredible. And I was like, yeah. And
Lo que
in,
es para ti, nadie te lo quita. Everything happens the way
exactly.
meant to for
Exactly.
you. Like, yeah, like you just kind of got to roll with the punches and
Yeah, and we
no,
were gonna figure it out no matter what. I mean, we were
yeah.
getting married that day, and that's what it was, and we were just gonna make the most of it and, enjoy and have a great time. And the next day we were leaving to New York. We took like a little mini moon, and we left from Tuesday and we came back Friday. And we spent a few days in New York City. And that was just really nice to just kind of like get away, but it wasn't like our full getaway. And we were supposed to come back on Friday and then Saturday celebrate with all of our friends, go out, whatever. And this is where you plan God laughs because we came back a day early. We came back Friday so that Saturday everything would be fine. And then come Saturday, come literally 1 hour before we're supposed to go out, Michael got so ill that we ended up not being able to do anything. So until this day, we really haven't even like celebrated our wedding. And at this point, it's kind of like, that's it. How much longer are we going to prolong the fact that we're married? Like, we get it. We're married. It is what it is.
You
So
can
it's,
still do it and you don't have to have an excuse for it. And I think like
no, we
that's the fun
don't.
part. It takes the pressure off. You can be like, hey guys, like my house Friday, 7 p.m. We're just gonna have a party and like, by the way, we're celebrating our wedding while you're here. Like when
That's
they
what
get there.
that's what one of my friends was telling me. She's like, "You guys can still do it. It doesn't matter." I think we're just like so caught up in being like busy with both of our careers that it's just like we're both our now our schedules kind of like match up but kind of don't. Now Michael has a full-fledged 9 to 5 corporate job, which I told him, "Welcome to the corporate life. It's great and horrible." But all of your days are your employer's days,
Yeah.
and that's just like what it is. So when he gets home, like we both like go to the gym after, like we have like our regimen of like things that we do throughout
Yeah.
our days. So like by the time we both get home, it's like later on in the evening. Like luckily we get to have dinner together, which hasn't happened pretty much in the entirety of our relationship because we've always had completely separate schedules. Like Michael would work a lot of like night hours or whatever, and he wouldn't get home until later at night. And I've always had a 9 to 5 job, so I was always home hours before he was home. So now we're kind of like, I like to say, like an established married couple now. Like it really has come full circle for us. We are now like a 9 to 5 married couple with like health insurance and benefits and 401ks, and I'm like, who are we? This is
But it's
crazy.
cool too that you guys kind of get to have that, like, where you build. It's like a new. I mean, marriage is obviously a new phase in the relationship to begin with, but like, you guys have never even had where you guys get to have dinner
Oh
together at
yeah.
the same time. Like, it's
Mhm.
cool that you guys get to have that moment for you, and the pressure's off. Like, you got married. You didn't have to deal with everybody's input on the napkins and this and that,
Yeah.
and like you got what you
Mhm.
wanted ultimately, and now you get to
Exactly.
build your life together, and that's the most important thing, and
No,
that's the
yeah,
best part.
100%. And
Um,
it's funny because people keep asking me and us, how is it being married? And I'm honestly like, it's the same shit. Like it feels the same, but I think it's because we've lived together for so long that it all like nothing changed from one day to the next because we still like came home to each other. We still did all of the same things. Like it wasn't, I think for a lot of people who get married and maybe aren't living together and now they have to live together, that's a whole new phase of learning how to live with someone else, learning how to share your
Oh, I
space with
could never
someone.
marry someone if I didn't live with them
N-
before, no.
and that's again like to each their own, because I know people
Yeah.
who won't
Oh, yeah, yeah,
live with
same.
someone until they're married. I personally, that's not for me.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I got to live with Michael for a few years before we got married so that I could get used to having shoes in the middle of the living room
The
or having
toilet
like,
seat being up.
it's just like the random little things that drive you absolutely insane, but like I'm not going to constantly complain about it because at that point it just like I nag. So it's like figuring out, okay, like what, picking my battles. Like what am I battling today? Like am I battling like the toilet seat up, or am I battling like the shoes in the middle of the living room, or do I just give up for today? And so that's kind of like I've learned that over the course of the last few years. So now being married, it's no different. Like it's exactly the same. But I think that what is different now than previously is that we just have like this new phase of our careers that is completely different than previous. So that's like a fun new like learning
Makes it
experience. And
exciting.
yeah, and it's like a fun new way of like us trying to figure out like, okay, what are we having for dinner? Like I've been cooking a lot more, which has been like really great for me because for a really long time I didn't cook. And I actually, I prefer to cook. Like I don't like going out to eat all the time. It's not like my vibe. So I've been more what I like to call domesticated.
That's the word that
I've
I was thinking, but I didn't want
Yeah,
to say it.
I've become fully domesticated as a wife. Like now I like cook for my husband, like I cook for myself. But just disclaimer, my husband can cook for himself.
Yeah, I was gonna say
He
like you better at least clean the dishes
Oh yeah,
afterwards.
no, yeah. He knows how to wash dishes, he knows how to do his own clothes. I just like if I'm home
You
like
enjoy it for
today,
him.
like
Yeah.
I will do it and I don't mind, but like there are days where I'll tell him like, okay, like you can do it. You're perfectly capable as a human being, as a man, and as just like an everyday 9 to 5 employee now. You can come home and cook and, clean the dishes. And he understands. And we're in that sense, like we try to keep it very 50-50 so that it's not me taking on all the burden or him taking on all the burden. But realistically, like in any relationship, it doesn't even have to be marriage. Like it's not always going to be 50-50. Like sometimes you're 90 and he's 10. Like sometimes there's someone in the relationship that has to pull more weight than the other person, and that's just the reality of relationships. So anyone who's fooled into thinking that it's always 50-50,
Yeah.
you're going to be very disappointed because that's not in fact the case because we
And
go
that's
through
with
seasons in
any
our lives.
relationship,
Oh yeah, for sure.
friendships,
Even friendships.
parents, like your children when you get there, if you go there, like yeah, it's.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's just like I think life in general as well. Like in life sense, it would be things are sometimes up, and then sometimes some things are really down, or sometimes you're in the middle, and that's just kind of like how it is in any relationship, whether it's a working relationship, whether it's your personal relationship, friendships. It's a balance of figuring out like what works for your friendship or what works for your relationship, but without it being a constant like sacrifice on one end versus the other.
Yeah, for sure. And if it is, then it's time to like
Let it go. Yeah.
yeah,
Let
better
go,
off.
let God.
Mejor sola que mal acompañada.
My That was
That
my
goes
mom's like motto in life. She would
oh,
always tell me
same.
that.
My mom tells me that all the time, and
Mhm.
I that's
And
one
I
of the
firmly
many
believe in
mottos.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
same. That's one of my
Mhm.
like core like mottos. But so you mentioned that, you guys are in the stage of figuring out your careers and like, growing into that and who you guys
Mhm.
are now as career people. And you said you've always worked in a corporate job, a corporate 9 to 5, but you work in social media. So
I do. Mhm.
and we talked about this in the previous episode, but you work in a social media marketing agency. How did you kind of get into this field? Like what was your first foray into social media marketing, and like what do you do? Like what does that look like doing social
So
media at a corporate job?
so it was like very random actually, me like getting into social media because like you mentioned about you like having planned your career and having like a certain job or whatever lined up and having all these plans. Well, I also had plans in college and there were 1,000 different career paths I could have gone down, but I ended up changing my major so many times in college because every time I would get into one I was like I don't really like this, or it doesn't feel like it's me. And then finally I just ended up getting my bachelor's in communications, and I was just like okay, like what can I do with this? And then it became more of like okay, let me be practical and figure out like what it is that I can do. And it wasn't actually until a year later, like I graduated college and then I kind of had like odd jobs, and I worked for a while at a law firm as a personal assistant, and then like just kind of like bouncing around. And then I decided, I was like, you know what, like I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to get my master's in global strategic communications and kind of figure out like what I can do with like more. And when I got into my program, there was sort of a track you could go down doing social media. And I took like a couple of classes and whatnot, and I decided that I was going to do like, we had to do kind of like a baby thesis as a prerequisite for graduation. And so I did mine on social media, and like, talking about how social media was pretty much the future. And I used myself as an example. And so for that whole year that I was in school, that's when I started my Instagram page. And I started it initially to use it as a part of my thesis. And once I started doing it, I realized like, oh, this is actually really cool. I really like this. And I always liked writing, and I always liked kind of coming up with like cool like concepts. I just didn't know like what that looked like in a career. And obviously when I was younger, social media didn't exist. So that wasn't really a career you could go
Yeah.
down. But I finally like once I started doing it, I realized like, oh, this is like really cool. I'm really good at this and I really like it.
You know what's
And so
funny? I don't know if you follow Peyton Sarton, but she kind of did the same thing. Like, in order to get a job when so she went to a big state university for political science because she originally thought she was going to go to law school. And then when she graduated, she was like, you know, I don't really like this. I want to move to LA and like build my life out there. She had grown up in Texas her whole life. She's like, I'm moving to LA, and social media was just starting out. I don't know what year this was. I think it was like 2015ish around there.
yeah, like
And
2016.
yeah, and she was like, I want to get a job at For Love and Lemons. And which, in order to get the job, she created a blog
Hmm.
like to get them to notice her and like show that she could do like marketing and social media, and like she was starting to see the rise of the influencer thing. So it's kind of cool. I like that you did that too, that you use like yourself as an experiment to get you where you wanted to go. It's exactly what she did. And when she got there, she was like, yeah, mom, I'm not going to go to law school. Like, I really like this. I'm going to stay out here and I'm going to figure this out. And like,
Hmm.
she's now the big influencer that she is today. You're now where you are. And for me, like, I wrote my thesis on social media as well in law school. I literally wrote it on why
Hmm.
more lawyers are needed in the creator economy. And a year later, I'm now a lawyer in the creator economy, and there's so many more of them. And so many of them
Oh
are my
yeah.
mentors, and it helping me expand my interests and my passion so I can be a better lawyer in the creator economy. And what I thought I was going to open my law firm to do, I've already expanded and I opened it a week ago. So like it's wild. Like you just kind of like got to let it happen. But that's really cool that that was how you kind of got into it.
Yeah, it was like, what's meant to be will be, and that it kind of just like fell on my lap, and I was like, I'm going to take this opportunity. And at the time, social media wasn't necessarily as saturated as it is now, so there were a lot more there were a lot less opportunities as far as careers were concerned, but there was a lot more opportunity as far as a creator. So it's just like all just came full circle. And when the pandemic happened, I worked in social media, but I did a lot of marketing as well, which go hand in hand. It's all kind of, under the same umbrella. But I was doing marketing because I actually got my minor in marketing. And during the pandemic, I lost my job. And I think that that was when it was a real turning point for me, because it was trying to figure out like, okay, what do I do now? And it ended up being, like, the biggest blessing because, at the time, obviously, like, trying to figure out, like, what am I gonna do? Like, how am I gonna pay rent? Like, what am I gonna do with life? Like, was very stressful, but at the same time, pre-pandemic, I was miserable because I was getting paid nothing, barely livable income to live in Miami, and I just hated, like, what just didn't love. I wasn't happy. And I was like struggling like with grief and all these things, and I was like, oh my god, like I was so overwhelmed. And so the pandemic happened, and that was kind of like my outlet a little bit in terms of like social media and figuring out like, okay, like where can I go from here? And after that year I found a job, and it was the worst job I've ever had. It was horrible. I was even more unhappy than I was previously. I have never in my life quit a job, no less quit a job without having something else ready and lined up. I quit this job with nothing lined up. I just
But I
quit.
feel like that's so common. Like that has happened so much, especially during that time period because everyone was so desperate for a job.
Oh yeah, I was like, because at that point it was kind of like, okay, I need to get a job. Like I'm done. Like I'm done sitting around not doing anything, or I felt like I wasn't doing anything. And it's like I need something more tangible. I need something more sustainable, and I need to start getting into more of like a routine and a flow. So I took this job on, and it was like also like I like to take lessons from every job that I've had, whether they're good or
That's
bad,
the
and
best
from
thing.
every boss that I've had, and from every coworker that I've had. Like I always try to take, there's obviously the negative, which is why I left to begin with, but then also take like the positives or the learning lessons so that I can apply that moving forward
And what
in
not to do in the
in
future, and the
exact or
boss
what
you don't wanna
not
be.
exactly. And that's where I then was just like, okay, these are the red flags to look out for. Like if like it was like keywords that they would say that I'm just like, no, goodbye, next. And even in interviews, like I would know kind of like what to look for, what to listen for. And if the job felt too good to be true, it's probably because it was.
Yeah,
When they would start
100%.
like telling me all these things about like, like happy hours like every like 3 days, I'm just like that's like not a job. Like that doesn't even, how does that even sound realistic? Because
Yeah.
then like what I would come to find out is that they like stress you out for the 5 days of the week and they treat you miserably, but like, oh, like let's make it better by like giving you like a coworker happy hour. And that's how they smooth things over. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, absolutely not. Like I don't need to go into another toxic environment for work, because I'm a firm believer in the fact that we spend the majority of our time at work. And if I'm going to be at work, like I want to enjoy the people that I work with and the space that I work in, because if not, then like
And
what's
what
the
you're
point?
doing, and what you're
Oh
doing,
yeah,
because that is
100%.
your energy is going into that, and it affects
It affects
everything.
everything, and it
How
even
you
affects
come
your
home.
personal life. It affects,
Oh,
like, it
100%.
affects your friendships, like, when you're unhappy, like, that just seeps into every part of your relationship and your
Yeah.
life. And when I was at my most miserable, like, for sure, it would cause more arguments with Michael. It would cause me to feel more distant from my friends because I was just unhappy, and, like,
Yeah,
I was just
I know for
trying.
me, like, yeah, like that I've noticed it in myself, like, why I realized, like, I just need to go off on my own is because I was more miserable, and I was like, "I'm gonna stop prolonging my happiness when I know what I want." Like, I'm
Mhm.
not gonna sit here, like, I'd rather it be harder right now to get my foot in the door on my own firm and get started and build it up than be working for somebody else just because that's what you're supposed to do and be miserable. And yeah, it affects everyone around you and who you
Mhm.
are around them. And at that point, then, you know, I'm gonna, I'm gonna alienate my friends. I'm gonna isolate myself. Dating is gonna come to a complete halt because
Oh, yeah.
I'm not energized to go out and be social.
Of
And
course.
the only person who's gonna get end up worse off here is me. So I think it's super important to recognize, and for people that are feeling that way, like, you know, take inventory and like figure, and like I love that, like I'm the same way, like take learning lessons from every good, bad, and ugly opportunity of what not to do and what you like, what do you do want to take with you in the next step,
Right.
and what you
Exactly.
don't want to do, and the type of boss you don't want to be, or the type of employee you don't want to be. And use that to inform you. Like make a list of like where your life is right now, make a list of where you want it to be, and then make goals that are going to get you from point A to point B. And there doesn't have to be a timeline because it's going to be
No.
different. But
And it's
like,
also, don't expect for everything that you want to be what it is, if that
yeah,
makes
it's
sense.
gonna,
Like,
and yeah, you have to allow it to
it's
change.
not
It's
how
gonna
it
change.
works. Oh, no,
Yeah,
yeah, and I've had to learn that kind of the hard way, because it's
same.
at the end of the day, not every job that I've had has been so miserable, but it's like there's been some, like, good parts to it, but it's at the end of the day, like, you'll know when the vibe is right and, like, when you feel most comfortable. And that's when I now my now job, or like my now company, like my previous boss, when she hired me, what I think I loved the most was how transparent she was with the expectations of the job, like um what the job entailed, what the company, was like, et cetera, et cetera. So when I went into the job, I didn't feel completely blindsided, because that's how I felt with my previous jobs, where it's like they sold me this dream, and then when I went into the dream, it was actually a nightmare. And then
Yeah.
it would stress me out because it's like, what's happening? And I kept thinking it was me. And it was me in terms of like me picking the jobs that like I had like an inkling about that like wasn't right, but I just took it because kind of out of desperation, like I needed a job and like I was just like, this is the way to do it. And so with this one, it felt like I had taken my time to sort of, I had gone through like the learning lessons. I took my time, like picking this job, picking this company, going through a lot of interviews with different companies. And I finally landed on this one. And I was like, okay, I think this is the one. And when I got there, like, I was like, okay, like, this is great. And like, I have never been at a job where I was so happy for so long. And I obviously am still happy, but like for the first year, it was truly like I didn't have like anything really negative to say. Like, of
And
course,
that's
like you
so
get
rare nowadays, and it's so
it
sad.
is very, and it's like every job has its stress naturally. And
Yeah.
like I work at an agency, so like we have a lot of different personalities that we work with, a lot of different clients. So of course, like your clients, you know, will say things or do things where you're just like kind of rolling your eyes and you're like, okay, like take a deep breath, like figure it out. But, you know, overall, like the experience was so great. And I was, you know, part of it is I'm really thankful for my boss because she was very easy to work with and we got along really
That's the
quickly,
most
really
important thing.
easily. Yeah, and that I think made the whole working experience that much better is because her and I work so well together and that was the first time I had ever had a boss that actually like took the time to like sit with me and like just talk and get to know me and like we became friends. Like we just had this
That
2
is
days ago
so
we just had
important.
lunch. Yeah, like
Oh my god.
it's
Literally, I
a
was talking about
thing.
that with my mom today, like, the sitting down and guiding you and helping you and answering your questions and taking time to develop you as a person and as an employee is so, so important. And
Yeah.
also, personality-wise, like what you said, like, the vibe, like, I got there and, like, I liked the vibe in the interviews, like, I could tell when it was off in other companies, and this
Mhm.
one, like, I knew it was right because the vibe was right, and then you get there and it reaffirms that by being treated the way you are, and, it's so important, just, like, you wanna,
100%.
like it's not just, like, what it like and this is with anything, like, when it's a mutual decision when you interview. You can't
Mhm.
and dating
Right.
too, like, you can't go into it, like, I hope they hire me, I hope they hire me, like, desperation. They smell that. Like, you need to go in, it's like, "Here's
Yeah.
what I can offer you. Here's what I
Mhm.
bring to the table. This is what you can offer me. I wanna learn from you because I wanna do this, this, and this. This is what you guys do, but I
100%.
wanna learn from it. Here's what I already can bring to the table."
Yeah.
You wanna make it a mutually beneficial offer.
And you
And
wanna be confident. Like, I funny enough, I
yeah,
just had my last, podcast episode is all about this, and it's all about, like, obviously my career, but also just, like, my sort of now as a boss, like, when I think about, like, okay, who am I gonna hire? Or, like, even the girls that work under me, like, what what am I expecting sort of? Like, what do I wanna see? Like, what do I try to sort of, like, teach them and, like, mentor them and I feel like confidence is the number one thing. Like, you need to know that
100%.
you bring something to the table, not necessarily that no one else brings, but that you will tell them, I am going to do this and I'm going to do it that much better than someone else because like I
It's
care
unique
and
to you.
yeah, and because this is who I am as a person. And I think that, you know, now at my job, when I got my job last year, in 2022. It was during the summer, and almost immediately within 6 months had already been promoted once, and then I got promoted again a second time. And I got a title change. And then finally, the third time, it was like, okay, my boss decided that she wanted to step down. And she was like, I want you to be my successor, essentially, and
That's
offered me
amazing.
my now title. So now I am the director of social media. And it's been like a whirlwind of like learning to, you know, be a boss and be young. I mean, I'm not like super young, but I'm also not old. So it's like being in that middle ground where I am older than the girls that work in my department, but I'm not too old where I can't like understand and relate to the things that they talk about or the things that they sort of expect as employees, or you know, like there's a lot more relatability that I feel is a key part of it versus, you know, having bosses that are a lot older who are in a completely different like generational bracket who did things differently, very differently than our generation now and even Gen Z, because we have to remember that Gen Z is eventually going to be the big demographic of people trying to get a
And they
job.
already are. I'm technically
Mhm.
Gen Z.
Right.
Technically,
Well,
unfortunately.
technically, right.
I'm like awkwardly like I'm that 1 year
In the
that is like
middle.
straddling
Mhm.
and I'm like, I'm not
Yeah.
Gen Z, but then I realize I am and I'm like,
Yeah.
fuck. Because
And it's
I'm
like
more of a millennial, like at heart. Um,
that's what it is now. It's the millennials and the Gen Zers that are kind of now taking over the workforce. And so it's figuring out, okay, how do we best adjust to this? And I think that people in companies who are a lot older still haven't sort of switched their mindset, because they're still in the mentality of like, oh, old school, like we didn't give all these perks and blah, blah, blah. But like
God,
now
I
you have
hate
to
that shit.
realize that, like now the new generation is very entitled in that sense. And I don't say that like in a good or bad way. I just say it as a matter of fact, like that is what it
Yeah.
is. And they have certain expectations of things that they want in the workplace. Some
And they gonna
be
ask
it
for it. And
crazy,
yeah, no, some of them
but
are, are
some are
ridiculous.
ridiculous, but
But some
overall, I
are important
mean,
and valuable, and,
yeah,
like, I literally was talking about this with my mom today, like, I am asking for these things at work because I work a part-time job as an attorney while I'm building my own thing, and it's like, I'm asking for these things, and because they have a mentality of, "This is the way I was taught, so this is how I'm gonna teach you," guess what? Not everyone is like that, and if you wanna be a good boss, you have to be we were talking about this earlier, adaptable
yeah,
to your employees. Like, you can't it's not one size fits all. It never was,
100%.
but it 100% is not now, and you can't treat it
Hmm.
that way anymore, and I think it's super I respect you as a boss, like, using that your experience and learning from it, and
Hmm.
actually what's the word I'm looking for? Like, adopting that and, like, using
Yeah,
what you learned because these people, they complain just as much as we do,
right,
but they don't want to do anything about it because it's harder to train and it's harder to guide because they want it done now and they want to like, you know, you can't just
right.
throw them to the wolves anymore. That's not fair.
Hmm.
And it's annoying as hell that
Yeah,
someone is asking for it. I know because I have interns. So I know sometimes I'm like, I don't want to sit here and explain it to her. Why can't she just do it? But it's like, no, if I want it done,
yeah,
like I can do it faster than they can. The whole point is to delegate and allow them to do it. And the only way they're going to learn is if you sit there and explain it to them. So
right.
take the hour out of your day now and you get 50 hours back later. And
Well,
I wish more
my
people understood that. And I think it's really
that's my
cool
big
that
thing.
you did that. And I think, like you were saying, like as more millennials and Gen Z become part of the workforce and more millennials and older Gen Z start taking on these leadership roles and mentoring the next generation, I look forward to seeing that shift. I mean, I'm hoping it does because like you and I were having these conversations, so
Oh,
both of them are
it
doing.
will for sure. It will, no doubt about it. I think that, now we see a lot more of employers understanding the work life balance. Work is at work, home is at home. I personally, like, I have an issue with work. Like, I work often, even sometimes when I'm at home, which I shouldn't, but I've become a lot better at not doing that anymore, because I think it's important to have that work home life balance and leave work at work, because at the end of the day, like, everything can be a fire. But just because something is a fire to one person doesn't mean it's a fire to me.
100%.
And I just, I'm not here to put out fires even on like my personal time or like my free time, but I'm happy to do whatever I can during the hours that I work, and sometimes even beyond that. But without like also putting boundaries. And I'm very much about that with my girls too. Like, if you're off, you're off. I don't want you working. Like, I think that's ridiculous. You're off for a reason. If after work hours, like, I don't bother them on the weekend. I don't bother them unless it's truly like an emergency or it's truly something that's important. And like, there are very few times where I will text them and be like, hey, like, what's going on the weekend? Unless we're talking, like, we are friends. So like, we also like talk
Yeah.
about other things and like we text and whatever. But overall, like, work wise, it really is Monday through Friday, 9 to 5:30. Like, 5:30 we're done. Like, I don't care if, because I know when I was kind of like starting off in my career, ending the day at 5 p.m. or 5:30 or whenever your day ends, if you left on the dot, like that was frowned upon. Like it was just like, why are you doing that? That's horrible. But to me, the way I see it is that if you're making the most of your time from 9 to 5:30 and you're
That's
working
all
and you're
you
doing
need.
everything that you are supposed to be doing and there is nothing pending for, the rest of the day, then at 5:30 on the dot, you're free to go. I mean, that's technically per whatever it is that you were told, like that is your time to work. So I'm not going to sit here and keep you unless it really is something that's pressing that really needs to get done for the following day or whenever if there's a deadline. But if, as long as you're making the most from the time that you start work to the time that work ends, I personally have no issues with people doing, whatever, leaving at whatever time they need to leave, taking their hour lunch if they need to take it. Like, there has to be like a happy medium where people just don't feel like all they're doing is just like sitting and like, just like at the computer all day long. And like, especially in what we do in social media, like being on your phone all day long and being on the computer all day and like creating and like whatever, it's just like it becomes overwhelming. And then when you go
Yeah,
home, like you're on your phone scrolling and like
you're
it
already
becomes
drained
like
from the day,
yeah,
and then it bleeds
yeah.
into everything else.
Oh, yeah,
It's
100%.
unfortunate. But I love everything you're saying. Like my mom is a manager at her job now, like in the last couple of years, and she literally this week I've been helping her write out like what a day in her life of a manager. Like so she's a
Mhm.
director, so like the manager under her. Like a day in the life of what the manager's role should be because they're not effectively using their 8 hours the way
Right,
that they should be.
right.
And I'm helping her like write it out like and make it like short and sweet and like to the point. But everything that you're saying is like what she teaches her team, and she truly takes like she works ridiculous hours because she doesn't actually get her work done until everybody else has gone home because she's spending the day training.
Training
But
and doing yeah.
she much rather would do that and actually guide you and be there to help you than to see you
Right.
suffer. And like
Yeah.
I know it hurts her seeing me like that. And so I think it's really cool that, you know, as our generation, my generation and yours start becoming the leaders, we start implementing those mistakes that we saw and our pain points and doing something about it. And I think that's really cool.
I'm a true believer in that in terms of like, um, you know, finding ways to like best make it work for everyone. I very much um with my girls, if you ask them, I'm always asking them questions. So I'll always ask them, like, okay, how are we feeling today on a scale of 1 to 10? Like, how stressed are we? How overworked or overloaded are we with work on a scale of 1 to 10? If you tell me you're at a 7, that's pretty moderate for social media. So, like, we're good. But if anything is at an 8 or above, it's like finding ways, okay, how can we find a solution to like
I love
make you
that.
feel less stressed? But also like putting together like lists, so like for my part-timers or for the interns, it's like putting together a list at the end of every day to say like, okay, this is what we did for the day. Here when you come tomorrow, here's a list of what needs to be done. Here's like a deadline of when it needs to be done, little examples or whatever. Like I like to lay everything out because before I became director, I was a manager, and with that came the responsibility of teaching our interns. So I was always hands on with the interns. Sometimes we had 3 interns at a time, which, believe it or not, is very overwhelming because you're
Yeah, because that's a
constantly getting
training role.
questions. But now as a director, like, because I had that experience, when the girls come in and they're like, "Are you busy?" I always say, "I'm always busy, but not too busy to answer any of your questions." Because, like, in essence, every boss is busy. Like, that's just what
Well,
it
everyone, no
is.
matter what your
Um,
role is, you're busy. And I think that's a great way to look at it. It's like, yes, I'm busy, but how can I help you? Like, how can I
Yeah,
make
like
time
I
for you and
I I think the
making space
stupidest
for them?
question is like for me, like I always tell the girls, like my motto is there's no such thing as a stupid question. The only stupid thing is not asking the question. And that's not to say like don't come to me asking me a question about how do you upload this on social media? Like that's basic. Like you should know how to do that. That's part of your job. But like
Yeah,
if it's more in depth, and you've like researched or you've tried to look for it and you can't figure it out, don't sit there for 3 hours and try to figure out, because you could have asked me and I probably could have given you an answer and you wouldn't have wasted 3 hours out of the day. So it's like,
100%.
and even if it is like a quote unquote like stupid question, or like it's more so like you should know the answer to it, I would prefer you ask the question after you've kind of like tried than just like sit there and waste time or not. Like I think that is the stupid part that a lot of people do is they just try to truly figure it out on their own, either because their boss doesn't want to deal with them and tells them like just figure it out, or because like they are just like they don't want to ask for help. And I think either way you look at it, whether you're a boss or you're an employee, I mean, you guys are all working together. That's the whole point of being a team. And so you're supposed to work together to figure out, solutions to problems, but also figure out how to cohesively work together and make the most of the time that you have during the work hours. So I always try to find ways to, delegate as much as I can, but also take on as much as I can, and try to help my team not feel like they're taking on all the burden, because I never want I never want the girls to go home and when their friends ask them like, "Oh, how's your boss?" It's like, "Oh, well, she sits there and does nothing and makes me do everything." Like, I never want anyone to say that
Yeah,
about me, and I never want them to say that, like, I don't treat them well, or, like, I don't know, and I have this unfortunate quality in me that, like, I want people to, like, be happy, and like it's a good thing and a bad thing, because then like all I'm thinking about all the time is like how can I make you happy, instead of like thinking like how can I make myself happy. um
100%.
but I think with employees it's important to keep them happy, because they are like the wheels on the bus that make things run, and if they're not happy, then that's when we have like car accidents, and like
Yeah,
if
the
we're trying to,
metaphorical
yeah,
sense.
if we're
No,
trying
I
to
know
use metaphors here, but
I get what you're saying. But
it becomes a disaster, so I try to avoid that at all costs.
oh, 100%. I'm literally like, as you're saying all this, I'm just like, as the employee, I'm feeling that and I'm asking for help and guidance and I'm not getting it. And it's really freaking frustrating. But also, as I'm starting
Yeah.
my own firm, I'm like keeping mental note of all the
Yeah, for
things
sure.
I want to implement when I get to the point where I can hire. Because do I need to hire?
Sure.
Yes. Can I afford to? No. But
Right.
like, as I get there, and because I know I'm gonna have to do it quickly and like may not be able to assess like the first few employees, like they may not be there forever. Some hopefully they will be, but like, because I might have to do it out of desperation. The systems and the processes are in place, but
Sure.
100% like work harder, not like work smarter, not harder. And like,
That's my motto in work life.
yeah, like why are we killing ourselves? And like it like you don't want them to feel like they have to be doing that too, because it just doesn't make it fun. Like you want to like at the end of the day, you spend most of your time at work. You want to have fun at work and you want to make
Yeah.
sure the personalities fit and the vibe is there. And yeah, you're gonna be stressed, you're gonna have issues, but have ways to resolve them and help each other out, because at the end of the day, yeah, you're a team, you're all working together.
Yeah.
What do you think you've learned the most about yourself? Like, how have you as a person changed having now taken on this role? Like, outside of like the work aspect, but how has it made you a better
Yeah.
person, a better friend, a better wife, a better, like, just person in general?
I think it's made me, I feel like I've had a shift in my way of thinking and seeing things. My perception has changed on just like I think life in general. I think, it's given me a lot more. I like to believe I've always been a pretty patient person, but it's given me a lot more patience and understanding, because I was once there not too long ago, and I know what it feels like and I know what it's like. And that's why I always want to make everyone on my team feel heard, because I want them to feel like they can come to me and talk to me about whatever it is that they need to talk to me about. Even if it's about me, I always try to like keep them accountable too, and like have them tell me like what can I work on as a boss? Like is there anything that, makes you feel like, I could do better at? And
I
whether they
love
tell
that
me,
self awareness. And I think that's something that our generations, like millennials and Gen Z, have that others don't. And
yeah,
I
oh,
think that's going
100%.
to be such an incredible thing as we move forward. And also for us being in social media ourselves, I think has made us more self
Yeah.
aware.
Oh,
Like going back to the
100%.
beginning, like being more vulnerable and like choosing when and what to
Mhm.
share. Like we have more self
Exactly.
awareness of like, all right, I'm like, this is like a big intense moment, but like I feel good enough in myself to share this because I know it could help somebody else. But maybe this one, like I'll hold on to for a little longer and share it after
Right.
the like
Exactly.
that self awareness in career is 100% like so important.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's just helped me, like, I think in maybe my husband would say that, like, maybe it's made me more of like more task oriented in the home. So it's like, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, and like having like sort of like a routine, which drives Michael crazy because he is not that type of person, and he's not. I wouldn't say he's not like a structured person, but he's very go with the flow, which I'm very very much not, and that's where we kind of like complement each other.
That's
But
what I was saying, like, opposites attract
oh,
sometimes.
for sure,
Sometimes no,
definitely,
sometimes they do. I'm
yeah,
like you, and I need someone who is, like, way more, like, go with the flow, like, get shit
oh
done when they
yeah,
need to get shit done. They know they have their things, and they're gonna do them. Maybe I have
exactly.
to ask them once or twice, but they eventually get it done. But
Oh
then
yeah,
other times they're like, "Alright, let's go. You get it from the computer, we're going out to dinner, like, let's go have fun, like, you need to, like, get out of your comfort zone, let's be spontaneous." Like, I need that too, like, and then, like, we work each other out, like, we balance
yeah,
each other
and
out on
you
that.
you learn over time like what you need, and like Michael and I are very homebodies. We like to be home. We enjoy like just spending time in our home, whether it's apart or together. It's just like being home is like a nice feeling for me, and I've gotten more into that as I've gotten older, because I think previously like what you just said is something I probably would have said, but I think now, as and this is not even because I'm married, like this happened pre being married, but I think over time I started to like realize that like I just like to kind of like make my home homey and like
Oh,
just
I'm both. There's
hang
both
out.
with me. I'm a
And there
homebody, but I wanna go out too, but it depends on, like, my day and my mood, and, like, I need them to, like, know that, which is
and
the hardest part.
I like to like go out, but like it's less of like going out and more of like hanging out with friends at their homes. Like that's like a big thing that we do a lot, is like, well, different people will have like a game night at their house. We'll go over, we'll
I
host
love
game night
that.
at our house. Like we'll have like a cute little like something, and it's just like everyone's kind of like at each other's homes, and that's become like the new thing for us, which honestly I kind of love, because
No, I love that too.
there's nothing that I love more than just putting on a pair of like sweatpants and like just like being comfortable, and I've really like honed in on that like more than ever, especially in the last like I would say like year. And like I still have my outfits, and I still take like my like for social like my pictures with cute outfits and whatever, and obviously for work I have to get dressed every single day, but it's like when I don't have to, and I truly don't have to, I'm like, yeah, we're taking
Same.
that, and we're really just fully embracing the not having to get ready, and like
Yeah.
doing the no makeup, but like truly no makeup.
Oh, same.
So
I'm with you 100%. No, I'm definitely, like, I would say, like, I'm an extroverted introvert. I don't know what you think you are or what
mm,
you are, but there's days where I'm a homebody and, like, no one's getting me up from the couch. I'm gonna read my book. I'm gonna watch my show. We can have game night. If you want to come over, bring the bottle of wine, bring the games. Like, we can do it here. I'm not leaving my house though. If you
mhm,
want, like, and there's days where like, nope, I'm 100% by myself. Like, everyone leave. Like, I need to be by myself.
mhm.
And then there's other nights where I'm like, no, like, I want to go out to dinner. I want to go dancing. I want to go this. I want to do that. I want to try this new restaurant. And it's like I need someone who's like up for all of it.
Yeah,
But we'll see. The
you'll
the
find
the
someone.
dating the
You'll
dating
find it.
pool is
It'll happen when it's meant to
oh,
happen.
100%. I'm on
Trust.
pause. No, I'm
Trust.
honestly like, this is my I literally was talking about this with a mentor the other day, like, and my professor, like, this is my year of my business and myself and my friendships.
Yeah, that's
And if it
perfect.
happens in the meantime, cool. If not, no harm, no foul. Like, next year, I want to buy my house. I'm saving up to buy my house. Like,
Do
that's
it.
that. And like,
Live life, girl.
and like, if it happens in the meantime, like, that's great. But like, this year and next year, like, it's all about me and traveling and friendships and like
Yeah, I
saving
love
money.
that.
And we'll see what happens when it happens. Cause yeah, like, lo que es para ti, nadie te lo quita. Like, if it's meant to be, it's gonna happen.
Exactly.
I think that's a big theme, like, in my life, it's definitely a theme in your life, like, unfortunately, like, things happen that we have no control over, and we just kinda have to
Mhm.
deal with them, and some are really, really hard, like what happened in your life, but you've made the most of it, and you've made the best of it, and I think with everything, like, every chapter, every phase of life, like, as they come, like, it makes you better and more compassionate and more
Absolutely.
understanding, and it makes you a better boss, and it makes you a better friend and a better wife, and it just like, life happens the way that it's meant to at the end of the day, and I think
100%.
that's, like, the most beautiful thing, and, like, we just gotta stop trying so damn hard, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. I think, at the end of the day, like, I am content with my life, and I'm content with, the trajectory of how things progressed. Obviously, there were wrenches that were thrown, and that got in the way, and some bigger wrenches than others. But I think, the way I think about it is I could have easily allowed losing my mom to kind of, be the thing to stop me from doing anything with my life, and truly let grief consume me. But the way I thought about it was like, I have one life. I have to
And
make
you
the
have so much
most
of it
of,
left.
yeah, and I was so young, like I have to like do the most with what I have. Like I'm blessed to be healthy, and I'm blessed to, have a great support system. And, everything that I've gone through is a learning lesson. And, my mom wanted nothing more than for me to have a successful career and a successful life and be married to someone who like truly loved me, obviously have a family. Like these are all things that she aspired for, like she wanted all these things for me. So it would be a disservice to her and her memory for me to have wasted my
100%.
my opportunities and my ability in life, because again, I only have one life, and we all do. And I think, we all deal with things differently. And for some people, having gone through what I went through, like maybe they turned out a different way than I did, whether good or bad. But, at the end of the day, I can only control myself, and I can only control the things that I do in my life. And I think obviously a huge part of just everything that I've been able to accomplish, like, has a lot to do with Michael for sure. And I think him being my big support system, it played an essential, crucial part, because I think to myself, like, if I didn't have Michael, like, I don't know what would have happened in terms of, how I would have dealt with my grief. And a lot of my friends tell me, like, you were strong no matter what from the beginning, whether it was with Michael
And
or
that's
not. And
obvious that you are, I
yeah,
think. Like,
I would
for those
agree.
that are going through something like this that don't have a support system in a partner or someone, like a really good friend that is like your ride or die, you know, I like, for example, like me, like if this in that and something like this would happen to me, like I am by myself. And I think it's something that innate in you and I both, that we are just very strong. We were talking about this off air, adaptable. We're we're resilient. We roll with the punches, and like that's kind of the theme of like this episode.
Sure.
And like you would have been okay, but it's even better that you didn't have to do it alone. And
Right.
he has been there for you. And
Right.
also with everything, like what you were saying of like your mom wanted these things for you, it would be a disservice to her. She's guiding you along through it. She may not be on earth to do it, but she's still guiding you, and she's still putting those
Exactly.
obstacles and those blessings and all those things in your path for you to learn and grow, because she lived her life to the fullest until she couldn't anymore. And she
Right.
doesn't want you to stop living your life just because she doesn't get to live it with you.
Oh yeah.
And
And I
you
and
would
I
have done
think,
it by yourself.
yeah, I would have done it no matter what. I think Michael was a crucial part of it. I think my friends were also an essential part. Like I'm an only child, and so is Michael. And we don't like, because we don't have siblings. There's not like that extra person who's there to like sort of understand like what you may be going through. But I think my friends, truly became, they were
Chosen
always my
family.
family, but like they truly became like my sisters, and like my chosen family, and the people who rallied around me. And every time I'm sad or every time I'm whatever, like they're just like, hey, like come over. And it just like feels nice to have that, because it's almost better than like having it through blood, like having a sibling that was just like given to me because, that's just like what
Because
it is.
they choose to show up for you every day and
Right.
be there for you, and you
Exactly.
choose to show up for them. And I have a younger sibling, and but I 100% am with you. Like my friends are at this point in my life where I'm at, because my brother's 4 years younger. So like we don't, and he's also a
Mhm.
boy. So like we have very different experiences. Like
Right.
my friends are my chosen family, and they are the ones that are in the trenches with me. And my brother 100% has been there for me as well, but like he doesn't, I mean, I think he knows, but like he doesn't know it in the same way that these people are. And it's the same thing, like they're your chosen family. And I think, yeah, you would have done it on your own. it's amazing that you didn't have to, but like you got where you are today because it was in you and they just supported you in that. And when you were down, they were there to be like, you know what, like, you're capable of so much more. And I think it's really hard when you don't have that support system, but it's never too late to cultivate it. And that's the beauty of social media, especially like me and Sasha,
100%.
like we were joking about, it's like we literally have never met in person. And here we
Mhm.
are having these deep conversations. Like you can cultivate that for yourself no matter where you are in what stage of your life
Definitely.
through social media. And that's the power of it. And connectivity and community. And like, you're never as alone as you think. You're never, you know, you're doing fine and you're gonna be okay. And like you have people that want the best for you, even if you don't think that you do, like they're there. And like the theme of this episode, literally like the title is like everything happens for a reason. And both of our episodes have been that. But
Yeah.
for people who want to get into social media though, like kind of work in the agency side of things, not so much the influencer side, but the
Mhm.
agency side, the marketing side. Like, let's say they're, in college, like graduating, their marketing majors, or even if they're not marketing major, how can they get into this field? Like, working at a company like where you work, and what are the skills, the tools that they should know as they, it's February, so graduation's right around the corner, and they're thinking about jobs. Like,
Sure.
where do they start?
Um, so if you are in the marketing communication sort of field, it makes it a lot easier to get into it only because you've probably either taken classes in social media. That's a lot more common now in marketing majors. They have some sort of class that they can take that is, purely based on social media. But I mean, also, like, I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Like, social media isn't like the most complicated thing on the planet to figure out. Like, you can sit and truly teach yourself how to do it. So, for those who are not at all in the space of social media, that doesn't mean that you don't have the opportunity to be able to do it or to learn. It just is something else that you now have to teach yourself, and it's something that an extra skill that you might not have extra guidance on had you done it through being a major in college, for example. But for me, like as someone who's hired people, like when I look for a resume, I think the main qualifications that I look for, I don't need you to have had so much experience. But what I do need, and I think the interview process is where I really, everyone in my office would joke that like I have like this innate ability to kind of like read people from the first like five
Oh, yeah,
minutes
you
that they
make
start
your
speaking.
first impression from the first
Ye-
30
yeah,
seconds,
like I
and
can
your
already
resume
tell.
just gets you in the door, but the interview
Yeah.
is the most important part for
And
sure.
I read every resume, like I try to go, and it's not like I don't get like an influx of 1,000 resumes, so I can't even imagine like it's with those. I truly believe that sometimes that is kind of just like luck of the draw because you can't possibly go through 1,000 resumes in the span of a few days unless you're really sitting there all day doing that. um but I feel like with me, like when I'm reading through resumes, like what I'm looking for is the main skills, which are like Canva. If you know how to use like any kind of like video editing tool, photo editing tool, if you have like InDesign experience, like that's a plus. If you know how to use especially Photoshop, like if you know how to use Photoshop, that's great, but I feel like Canva is like the next best thing. It's like what I like to call Photoshop for dummies.
Oh,
um
100%.
and it's just like very convenient. The templates are there for you. Like that's almost purely what we use exclusively at my agency. But I think it's also things like if you know like how to do Facebook ads, for example, definitely important. And I think for most jobs that's a plus. It's not like a requirement, but it's definitely, it does help because teaching people Facebook ads is very time consuming because Facebook ads are very complicated sometimes. Facebook does not like to make things easy for you. So there's
No.
extra parameters you have to learn. Um, and I think that's like essentially like what I like look for. Obviously, like knowing all platforms and like knowing how to like create things. I would say another big thing is definitely create some sort of a portfolio. Whether it's even just like what I did, for example, which is like creating your own like social media page and like using that as the example. Like as long as an employer can see what you can do, that definitely helps in that process because you have to stand out of a group of, even if it's 30 or 40 people, like you need to be the one. So, and you never know when you're interviewing how many people they're trying to hire unless they tell you. But typically it's, it could be just one or maybe it's two and you have to be 2 out of 40. But you have a 1 in 20 chance of getting hired. It's like you really have to stand out, and I think a
Yeah.
portfolio is key to that. Cover letters were the thing back then. Apparently they still are now. I
I think more
personally
so for like professional, not that what you guys don't do is professional, but I'm saying like more for like the like legal jobs or like accounting or like things like that.
yeah,
Like those companies are for sure still like cover letters. But I think for you guys, like the more creative industries, I think it's more so like the resume and the portfolio.
the
Because
portfolio is huge.
the cover letter is essentially like summarizing what your resume says and like being like, this is all my experience. This is why I'm applying for your job. Like, this is what I can do for you. Like, that's what the cover letter is. The portfolio
Right.
is showing them visually, because that's what you're going to be doing, what you
Exactly.
could do for them. So, like, I don't think you need both in your
No.
case. I think the
And
portfolio is important.
the cover letter for me is like non-existent. If you send it, like I'll read it, but it just doesn't really make sense to me. Typically, like if I start reading your resume and I think like it's cool, I want to learn more about you, I'll reach out
Interview.
and then ask for a portfolio. Or sometimes I'll interview and then if I feel the vibes are cool, but like I feel a little bit like maybe you don't have as much experience as you said on your resume. Like, I want to see your portfolio because I want to visually see like what you can do. And then the last thing would be writing skills. I think writing skills are really important, especially in social media. Like, yeah, we're just writing captions and like whatever, but like the captions need to
That's so
make
important.
sense. And like sometimes, like I read like some people on social media, I read their profiles, and I'm just like, I'll read captions. I'm like, what does this even mean? Like, I don't even understand this caption. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. So I
Yeah.
think writing is crucial. It's a huge, and especially if you work in different industries. My agency specifically focuses more on luxury real estate. So when you're describing $10 million penthouse, like you better be explaining that well because you're trying to get someone to spend $10 million to buy the
Yeah.
penthouse. So it's different little things like that. Or even when you're doing like we do hospitality as well, and like you don't have to write full on paragraph captions, but you want to summarize and find different ways of saying things in one like mouthful is like what I like to call it. Like, how can you say something without really like taking a breath when you say the sentence? And that's like you want to give that essence, but like make it based and themed on whatever that specific client is. If you work in agency life, if you work in house, then obviously like that's branded to whatever the company is. And you learn about brand voice in college a lot, especially if you're a marketing major. You learn a
Yeah.
lot about branding and brand voice and how to say certain things and how to what the aesthetic is for the overall brand. And
But I think
sometimes
that all comes down to words. Like, I think that's such a
oh, for
lost
sure.
art. With the social media age, people don't know how to talk or write anymore because it's all video content, and
Yeah.
video is super important, but writing isn't going anywhere. You need to be able to talk about what you're doing, especially in an interview. Or like
100%.
on a podcast if
100%.
they want to feature you, or in a book or in a news article or
Yeah.
magazine, whatever, like any feature, like you need to be able to explain in words what you
Yeah.
do and what you're showing, and explain your portfolio. And I think that's
Exactly.
such a
And video content is obviously huge nowadays on social media platforms. It's pretty much critical. If you are, let's say, a freelancer right now and you're listening and you're doing social media strategy for a company and you're not including any kind of video content, aka reels, then your your client is suffering. Like
hundred percent.
there's no way around that one. Obviously TikTok is like a huge platform.
What do you think is going to happen with TikTok? Did you hear about that? Like TikTok might be going away. Like as someone
Yes.
who works in that side, like what's your thought on that?
I mean, I think it's like a good and bad thing. Like all
Yeah.
social media managers are probably like jumping up and down for joy in a sense because it's one less platform that you have to
Yeah.
worry about. Especially like when you have like we have certain clients that are on like six different platforms, like that becomes very time consuming and overwhelming. So if you can take away one platform, it makes one social media manager very happy. But I feel like obviously TikTok is a very prominent and like growing platform. I personally am a huge fan of TikTok. I've actually shifted a lot of my personal like focus to TikTok more so than Instagram just because I feel like it's a lot um easier, it's easier to digest, it's easier to like create and you have more potential for like eyes on your
Exposure.
platform versus Instagram kind of to me has now become sort of like stagnant in a sense. I almost wish that they would have never transformed and like gone over to like video content. I loved when it was just like
I'm glad it's
pictures.
back to, like, mostly photo now that you see that they're emphasizing photo again on Instagram.
Well, that's the hope because I'm sorry, but again, every social media manager on the platform on the platform and in the world is like n- knocking their head against the wall because they're having to create reels every single day, and that becomes very time consuming,
Not
especially when
even
you're
as
in
a
an
social
agency.
media manager, but for me in general, as someone who's trying to, well, especially as I was in school, but now like I'm trying to grow my business and I have to
Oh
market
yeah,
it and I'm using
for
social
sure.
media to market it because it's free. But then like I have to worry about video content too. I'm like graphics and video, and I have to show my personality. And then I want to still show personal content. So yeah, TikTok has become more of like the fun,
Yeah,
quirky, like real side of me. And
right.
then Instagram's more like the business side, but like I still want it to be enjoyable when I want to show my life, and I'm just like, there's so much to consider. So I can
There's a
only
lot,
imagine.
yeah, there's a lot to think about and a lot to consider now on especially on Instagram, but like just in social media in general on all platforms. It's like you're constantly thinking about like the next best thing, like how can you like, you know, when you have clients demanding like not demanding, but like constantly like mentioning wanting to go viral. It's like there's no like and there's no one solution to like going viral
Yeah.
because every person who's ever gone viral literally says I didn't think this video would go viral. Like, that's literally the whole
It's
thing.
always
Like,
the worst video, like the 2 second.
that yeah, like,
Oh,
you don't know what's gonna go viral and what's not. Like, there's no anyone who tells you that there's a solution to go viral is lying to you.
all those strategy
It's
people drive
there is
me up
no
a fucking wall. They're all
no.
blocked. All of them
No,
are blocked.
there's no like when people are saying like Alex Earl is like the new like it girl on TikTok. Personally, I love her and I don't know why I love her, but I love her and I think that
I have
that's
to send you something. I don't know if you saw this. It's like because she's like the Serena van der Woodsen of this generation, and when I put those together, I was like, that's why she's. I'll send it to you.
probably like I would think there's something about her. There's like that it factor that makes her. I think she lives the life that so
She's
many people
interesting.
want
She's
to live,
interesting. Yeah.
and you want to like sit there and like listen to her get ready with me's, even if they're 2 minutes long. Like it doesn't matter. But like people who give you a strategy to be able to be the next Alex Earl are lying to you. There is
Oh,
no
it's
strategy to being Alex Earl. Like
you just have
there,
to be a
that's
personality. It's not about a
exactly.
niche. It's not about a trending audio. It's not about a
Exactly.
certain like you need to have
You
it.
can
You
do
either have it or you don't. And
you can do
sometimes
all the get ready with me videos that you want to do in your lifetime, and if they're not interesting, it's not going to do anything. And so it's just
100%.
like it's just one of those things that it's kind of like she just happened to be the person that like just became the next like it person on TikTok. But as far as the platform is concerned, I mean, I think 2 years ago they were saying that TikTok was going to disappear like back then and then nothing happened. So I don't know. Like you know, whatever happens, happens. Obviously, we're not in control of that. If it decides to kind of like go away, then obviously we'll have to pivot and focus and social media managers around the world will have to re-strategize. But that's just all to say that like at the end of the day, have all platforms available to your business, your clients, how whatever industry you work in, just, you know, have let's say like an Instagram handle secured, have a Facebook page like created, get everything like in line in case TikTok disappears tomorrow. Like, what will you do? Like, where is your audience? Like, your audience is not going to know where
And
you
you
are.
wanna have an audience that or a platform that no one can take away from you, like a blog
Exactly.
or a website or,
Exactly.
you
Or
know,
a
'cause a
podcast.
podcast, like those are for sure like platforms where you're gonna have an evergreen audience.
100%.
YouTube is not 100% your own, but it's definitely more of like something that you can control and is more evergreen, I think.
Absolutely.
YouTube for sure isn't gonna go away anytime soon.
No. But you
Um,
never know with Instagram even and
yeah,
TikTok especially, like you don't know when the end of the road would be for those. So it's just trying to just have a backup plan in case any of that were to fail, like what do you do next?
yeah.
So just always keeping that in the back of your mind just in case, cuz it's definitely a thought that I have sometimes. I'm like, what would happen? But I don't think social media is going away. I don't think it'll ever go away or disappear. It's just going to keep evolving in different ways, whether that's platforms or the current platforms we have now evolving in different ways. But there's always going to be the next like platform, like Be Real is like one of those things. Like
It's already dead.
Snapchat was like the it thing back then, but when I was in high
Yeah,
school.
me too.
Snapchat has made a comeback. I don't know why or how, but like all of a sudden all of Gen Z is on Snapchat and I'm just like don't make this like a you thing. Like this was a millennial thing. Like we had Snapchat before you did. Like don't
Yeah.
pretend. But
Yeah,
then
they
there's like
discovered the newest thing, and I'm like, it's like
no, it's like the
when they
oldest thing.
discovered Y2K, and we're all like, "That's our childhood. Please don't bring that back."
But it's like, like at the end of the day, again, like catering to Gen Z, like they are the generation. They are like the biggest like target demographic. So and they're very hard to please. So it's just like finding new trendy ways of like making content and making things happen, making new creating new ideas that they find to
You
be
have to
exciting and
reinvent the wheel,
interesting.
yeah.
Oh, always.
What's
Always.
your favorite thing about social media, and what's your least favorite thing about social media, like, as a user, and then also, like, working in the industry, I guess?
So I'll start as a user. So as a user, I love just being able to see like TikTok specifically. I have learned so much on TikTok. My friends call it TikTok University because it's
It
like
is.
you feel like you're learning so much all the time because there's so many in general on social media that you have access to so many different people and everyone has like their own journey in life. They've learned so many different things. Like there's some people that are more cultured than you, less cultured than you, like whatever it is, but like you learn so many things from different people in life, and I feel like without the existence of social media you're kind of limited to what the space that you're in, the city that you're in. But now with social media you have that expansive knowledge and outreach, and it's this just ginormous community of just like the planet and like human existence. That's kind
Yeah.
of like it kind of like blows my mind when I really think about it. So I love that aspect also as someone who works in social media, because obviously just trying to create and do different things for different industries, for myself personally, like trying to reach different audiences and find new people to kind of talk to and relate to is really interesting. But and I love creating. I'm just like a huge fan of just like finding different ways and new ways of making things like fun and vibrant and fresh. My least favorite thing as in terms of just like work is obviously that social media is 24/7. It never dies. It never ends. My phone is going off all day long from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep. I have to put my phone on D&D every night because even throughout the night my phone is going off. We have clients that are in different time zones in different parts of the world, so it's like people are at all hours of the day sort of just like on the platform. So that's sort of it's a 9 to 5, but not really sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're working holidays, but I also love that it's just sort of, it's a quick thing. Like you're not sitting there working all day on something. You can easily just, once you have everything scheduled and lined up and whatever, you just sort of post. That takes 2 minutes and you're done. But obviously like as a user, I think it's kind of the same where like sometimes I get a lot of burnout because I'm trying to figure out like, okay, like me and what I like versus like what other people like and what other people want to see and combining
Yeah.
those together. And sometimes that can be very overwhelming, especially when you're doing this all day long and like thinking about that for like other people and then also having to think about it for yourself. It becomes very overwhelming. But I love what I do, and I'm I love my job, and I love I wouldn't be able to see myself doing anything else. So social media, don't die, because then I will be left without a career.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Like your favorite thing and your least favorite thing on the user side is their mind too. Like I honestly we were talking about this. Like we wouldn't be where we are today without social media. They have become our careers for you literally and for me in the sense that I wouldn't have the career that I have, the specific path I'm on in my career without social media. It allows me to do it, and that's my passion. And the whole thing for me was I want to combine social media and law, and I got to do that. So I wouldn't be where I am either. But also, yes,
Right.
sometimes it's hard to navigate like
Hmm.
what do I want to post and what do I enjoy and what should I be doing because everybody else is doing it, and finding that happy medium.
Right.
And it's really hard. So I'm with you on that. And we've kind of talked a lot about like mottos and like quotes and things that have like guided us. But like if you had one piece of advice for someone, like again, you're a little bit older than me, you're in your late 20s, I'm in my mid 20s, like for someone who is kind of in that like post grad life, self-discovery period, like figuring out what they want, like coming of age kind of thing, like what's
Hmm.
your best piece of advice, like just overall in general?
Don't stress, because life can change from one minute to the next. With my career now, I went from one day being jobless and stressing and trying to figure out my entire existence, to the next moment getting hired and having this incredible job that has like created in essence my entire career, and has helped me sort of jumpstart my career. And now it gives me a platform to just like continue on with what I'm doing. So I would say, truly don't it's easy to stress in the moment, and it's easy for me now to look back and say, wow, I shouldn't have stressed. But obviously when you're in the moment, it's a lot harder to do that. So
Yeah.
easier said than done. But it's more so just like, having everything organized in your mind as far as what you want, and then figuring out how to go after what you want and not taking anything less than that. Because it's easy to be desperate in moments where you really feel like you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you want, and you're panicked, and you just decide, okay, like that's it, like fuck it, I'm done. Like, and you just like get all stressed. But, you know, truly kind of like taking the time to really focus on what it is that you want, take that, and then now move forward with that, and go through that process of, okay, I like this employer, but I don't like that they gave me these options. I like this company, but I don't like this person that I would be working under. And then kind of like maneuvering and figuring that out. Eventually, again, like whatever's meant to be will be. So whatever is meant for you, like you will find your way to it. It's just not doing things in complete desperation just because you think like it's the end of the world, because it's truly not. If you go after what you truly want, like it will happen for you, and it will turn out exactly the way that it's supposed to. So that, I
Yeah.
guess, would be my biggest piece of advice, and something I've learned especially over the course of the last year and a half or two.
100%. I'm with you. Like and the cool thing too is like we have very different experiences, but a lot of our lessons and our like takeaways are the same. And it just goes to show that
Mhm.
like they're universal. Like you just gotta go with the flow and not stress out and let life happen around you and make the most of it, because what is meant for you is it'll find you when it's meant to.
Yeah, letting go and letting God, that's been my new thing. It's kinda like I, for so long, stressed about the little things that I couldn't control, and don't get it twisted, like, I still do because it's
Oh,
my
same.
personality, but it's, like, trying to figure out ways where I can do that less, because I can stress myself out less, because truly the only person in my life who stresses me out is me. And so it's like trying to find ways to cope with that and figure out ways where I can allow myself to just like let it go. It will be fine. Like what's supposed to happen will happen, and like be okay with that, because it's like one thing to say it, but then you're still stressed about it, and another thing to say it and kind of be with at peace with that, and
Yeah.
and truly like live with the feeling of that.
Yeah, you have to believe that for sure. And that's the hardest part, trusting yourself
Yeah,
and allowing yourself to lean into that. And that's something that I'm still working on and we're all still working on. But yeah, I
for
think
sure.
that's such a great place to end. And I think we've talked about so much. This is super long, but I think it's so helpful to recognize to like to close it all out, like wrap it up, like all things that happen, like you never let it get you down long term. And like there's so many beautiful things that can come out of grief and tragedy and hardship. And yeah, you don't stop living because it can there's so much more to live for, even if right now you're really going through it. So just let it go and it'll
Yeah.
all work out. Sasha, thank you so much. Where can everyone find you if they want to check out your Instagram, your TikTok, your podcast, Pimp Yourself Out?
Oh boy. Okay. So you can follow me on my personal Instagram page at Sasha Steph underscore, Sasha spelled SACHA. And on TikTok as well, same thing at Sasha Steph underscore. If you guys want to listen to my podcast, it's Red Receipts on podcast. So you can follow us at Red Receipts on Pod. Type in Red Receipts on Podcasts on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, anywhere where you can listen to podcasts. I feel like I'm signing off of my own podcast. See you guys. But that's where you can find me.
That's so funny. And I'll be on her podcast soon. And I'm really excited that we got to do a part two with you on my podcast because I think it's such a beautiful continuation of everything we talked about before and just go to
Right.
show that like from one year to the next, so much can change and so much can happen. And you really just
Absolutely.
never know. So you just got to
Hmm.
keep your chin up and keep looking forward and it'll all work
Keep on
out.
trucking. Yep.
Yeah. I'll link everything in the show notes. Thank you guys so much for listening. And I will talk to you guys next week.
Thank you.